I'm not saying capitalism is bad. I'm just saying that it's evil. Okay, maybe demonizing it is counterproductive, but we could still take a pretty sober look at this.
First thing to remember is commerce is not capitalism. The two operate to facilitate the movement of goods and services, and there are certainly aspects of commerce in capitalism, but the foundation of capitalism is to extract the labor from other people to create a profit.
Second, capitalism is inherently unstable and cannot exist without state intervention. And to be fair, it's only almost failed in 1873, 1929, 1973, 2001, 2008, and 2020. That's all.
Third, capitalism is relatively new, roughly 200 years old, emerging out of the Industrial Revolution. It is neither natural nor the only way to facilitate the movement of goods and services.
Lastly, it's inherently oppressive and inevitably becomes predatory. Most like to give the example of your average everyday Jane who has a good idea and is able to start a company based on that idea and live a comfortable lifestyle. In reality, it's faceless, immortal corporations that must maximize profits and markets, and the only thing that stands in the way is your pay. This isn't about honest, hardworking people. This is about power, domination, and wealth at any cost. If you really want to see how predatory this system is, look into the gambling industry. Okay, so what's the alternative? Today I'm talking about Another Now by Yanis Varoufakis, published by Melville House in 2021. Yanis is an economist and was the Minister of Finance in Greece. And typically, I don't read novels, but Yanis lays out an alternative economics in a smart and clever way, with a perfect blend of theory and science fiction, which is my personal favorite. The basic premise is a parallel universe. After 2008 market collapse, instead of bailing out the same systems that led to that collapse, we replace the broken system. The alternative put forward is corporo-syndicalism, corporo for corporations, and syndicalism, which means ownership by the workers, with no systems of hierarchy or power structures.
When hierarchies are used to match people with particular roles and teams, the result is clumsy, inefficient, oppressive. Status anxiety and the need to satisfy one's superiors makes full transparency impossible. People are kept in the dark about the relative attractiveness or drawbacks of working with particular managers or colleagues, how happy or dysfunctional teams are, how rewarding or boring different projects. Hierarchies simply perpetuate and expand themselves. Yanis explains, no one tells anyone what to do. We choose freely the person or teams that we want to work with and also how much time to devote to competing projects. Everything in our company is in flux. Staff move about, new teams are founded, older projects die, new undertakings are concocted. No bosses to order anyone around. Spontaneous order and personal responsibility overcome the fear of chaos.
Okay, so what if there's no bosses? If it's still a corporation, how's it any different than any other form of capitalism? It's the absence of profit motive. Profit motive is what inevitably leads to domination of people over other people.
No hierarchy is involved in determining pay either. A company's income is divided into 5 slices. One slice, 5% of all revenues to be precise, is retained by the government. The remaining 95% is divided into 4, an amount to cover the firm's fixed costs such as equipment, license, utility bills, rent, and interest payments, an amount for R&D, a slice from which basic payments to staff are made, and lastly, a slice for bonuses. One person, one share in the company's profits, one vote. But there's also a system where employees transparently vote to give extra amounts of bonuses to each other based on merit and hard work as an incentive for a job well done.
Okay, so that's great for all the people who can or want to work, but what about people who have disabilities or somebody who has a passion for something that doesn't have a market?
Everyone is provided with a bank account that is broken up into 3 sections: accumulation, legacy, and dividend. Your accumulation is essentially the same as your regular checking account, where you have the freedom to do with it what you please. The legacy is a trust for every single person that is born that you can't use until you come of age. This system is used to eradicate generational poverty that makes for a truly equitable society. The dividend is a monthly deposit based on 5% of each of the corporation's revenue. The monthly payment's purpose is to liberate everyone from the fear of destitution, but also from the demanding and cruel means of testing of the welfare state. It provides people who do not care to engage in business activity with sufficient income to provide priceless contributions to society that no market can properly value. For example, in the caring sector, environmental conservation, or non-commercial art, or even to exercise their right to laziness.
When there's no owners, no personal income tax, and no sales tax, no one person paying into a communal fund, nobody seems to mind because everybody receives the benefit. There's much more on how this alternative society functions and works, especially in relation to holding these businesses accountable to the communities that they're in, and the downfalls of the system that they also experience. I'll give you a hint. Somebody tried to capitalize on it. One of the critiques that anarchist thought often receives is the lack of a plan for the future, because instituting a structure would mean taking away from the freedom of people to decide the future for themselves. But this book lays out a fantastic template for a future base to build on. Maybe this sounds unobtainable, fantastical, utopian, but there was a time when people could only imagine the divine right of kings being able to operate a society. And now, we couldn't even imagine going back to that.